Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Pulp Crazy. I'm your host, Jason Aiken. In this week's episode, I'm going to be discussing The Bat is My Brother by Robert Bloch. It first appeared in the November 1944 issue of Weird Tales. It's been reprinted a handful of times in vampire and weird fiction anthologies over the years, but I read it on uns.org. They have the original Weird Tales scan up for you to download and read. If you're new to the pulps, but recognize the name, it's most likely due to Robert Bloch being the writer of Psycho, the book that inspired the Alfred Hitchcock film of the same name. The story is most likely not in the public domain, as Bloch passed away in 1994, but it's there if you're interested. I'll put a link to uns.org and also a link to the isfdb bibliography of The Bat is My Brother in the show notes, in case you want to read the story online or purchase a used copy of one of the anthologies it's appeared in. From what I saw, I don't believe this tale is currently in print anywhere, so the secondary anthology market is probably your best bet other than uns.org. The original issue of Weird Tales is probably a bit pricey, as most Weird Tales issues are. As you can probably guess from the title, and the image I chose for the episode title card, this is a vampire story. It's about a guy named Graham Keene, who wakes up in a pauper's grave and busts through the cheap casket and emerges up out of the soil one night. After emerging, he meets a vampire who informs Graham that he's now a vampire too. This was a pretty cool story. From the very beginning, I thought Bloch was maybe going to go in the same direction that Lovecraft did, with The Outsider, but he didn't go that way at all. It's nothing like The Outsider, save a monster is the main character in both stories. Bloch is a master of weird descriptive sentences. The story's roughly 8 pages long. There's some interesting dialogue between Keene and the other vampire, who is taking him under his wing, pardon the pun, so to speak. They talk about the stereotypical vampires in literature and movies a bit, and how that's not what they are really like. I think there's one passage in particular that is a nod to Universal's Dracula, starring Bela Lugosi. The vampire, who calls himself the Guardian, has some big ideas for the vampire race. Aside from the dialogue, there are a few hunting trips the two take. Pair these with the excellent dialogue and weird imagery, and I have no problem recommending this tale to any fan of weird fiction or vampire fiction. If you're a fan of weird fiction, you definitely need to read Robert Bloch. Bloch is quickly becoming one of my favorite authors. I loved his Yours Truly, Jack the Ripper, and I've purchased a few science fiction and weird fiction anthologies recently that have other shorts by him. He seems to be an interesting guy. He was a member of the Lovecraft Circle, writing to H.P. Lovecraft when he was a young man. As a matter of fact, Hippocampus Press is going to be publishing the correspondence from Lovecraft to Bloch, as well as Lovecraft's correspondence to other young writers at the time. I just pre-ordered that book the other day, and I'll be sure to put a link to it in the show notes as well. If you're interested in hearing what Bloch sounds like, I have some audio on my YouTube channel of him at the first World Fantasy Convention that was on archive.org. Manly Wade Wellman is also on the panel, so that's something to keep in mind if you want to listen to a piece of weird fiction history. I'll link that in the show notes as well. Well, that's it for this week's episode. If you noticed how the episode sounds better this week, We have my cousin Adam to thank for this. Thanks for the pop filter, Adam. You were right. It does make a difference. Pulp Crazy is located at pulpcrazy.com. I'm at Pulp Crazy on Twitter. And facebook.com/pulpcrazy. My YouTube channel is located at youtube.com/pulpcast. You can also email me at pulpcrazy@gmail.com. Please like, follow, or subscribe if you're enjoying the show. I don't abuse my social media feeds and very rarely tweet or post anything on Facebook other than when there's a new episode out or if there's some type of major announcement I have to make. So I won't be clogging your feed. Well, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.